Yo, what's going on, guys? Gray here with another Genshin Impact video. You clicked on this video because you want to know more about my boy Chongyun. He is a two-hander ice character inside of Genshin Impact, and he's about anywhere between a B and an A tier support character. I'm going to dive into some information about how his abilities work and how you can use him in combat, and then we'll take a look at his talents and his constellations to see how you can build him to make him the most efficient you can. So if you guys enjoy the video, leave a like below and consider hitting that subscribe button if you want to see more Genshin Impact content. But with that being said, let's take a look at his abilities. I'm just here in the Spiral Abyss. I'm going to start up the challenge. We can check out his abilities. His regular attack is like this, it's like a ice AoE. He drops it on the ground. Usually it just messes everything up. Whenever stuff is inside of the AoE, your attacks are going to do ice damage to everything stuck inside of the ring. It doesn't last too long, but it lasts long enough. And his Q, his ultimate or his elemental burst, is just this huge ice spike that hits everything. He's all about AoE damage. And you can just sit here. You can do, the two-handers can sit and spin like this and just smack things up. It's a lot of fun. You can mess stuff up. He's very strong. He's not really a DPS type character, but he can synergize with a lot of teams. I'm using Barbara, and what I'll do with her is throw up the water ring and then switch back to Chongyun. And while the water ring's up and you throw this down, it's going to freeze everything you hit. These guys, not so much because they're lightning, but most enemies will get frozen on the spot as soon as you touch them. It's really cool and really, really strong. And he's a ton of fun. I have a double lightning, ice, and healer team right now, and he is pretty quintessential to helping me have crowd control. He can freeze everyone in place, and he helps me control the battlefield. He's not a top tier character by any means, but if you roll him, you're definitely going to want to build him out because he can be pretty good for your team. So we'll take a look at his talents and his constellations now and see what we can do to make him as strong as possible. So we talked about it a little bit while we were fighting in the Spiral Abyss there, but I want to go over his attacks and his constellations a little bit so you get a little deeper understanding of how he works. Obviously, we saw his attacks. He uses a two-hander, so he has those broad swings. He does a lot of AoE damage, and you can do your charge attack is that spiral attack where you just smack everything around you. He has that frost AoE he drops on the ground that'll make it so you deal cryo damage to everything that's inside. And then he has that huge burst damage where he drops the icicles down and messes everything up. He's just really about crowd control. He can do some solid damage in the right situations, but he's definitely more about crowd control. When we look at his constellation, sorry, I'll pull it back up. I didn't mean to close it out there. We look at his constellation. He has one ability, one thing in his constellation that really you should pay attention to, and it's the first one right here. And it says the last attack of his normal attacks, he does a little 4-hit combo, and it'll release 3 ice blades. Each blade will deal 50% of Chongyun's attack as cryo damage to everything in its path. The important thing to take away there is that it scales with his attack, so if you want to get the most out of this ability, you want to buff up his attack as much as possible. As far as all of his other constellation abilities, nothing else really scales too much with any of his stats. It's really just that first one that scales with attack. And even though he's a support character, I still feel it's important to buff his attack up a little bit because he can definitely hop in and deal some burst damage and mess things up, especially when you get that crowd control element if you're using Barbara or another Hydro character to freeze things. It's very, very powerful. We'll move on to look at his weapons and the artifacts. What I like to do for this next segment, I'm going to talk about sort of what I'm using as I'm leveling and moving through the game, and then we can talk about what his best in slot things will be as you're approaching endgame. As far as Chongyun's weapons go, there's a couple options you can go with, and this recently I just realized this very recently, but actually if you have the debate club laying around, and you most likely do, I've had this thing drop for me 1,000 times from all of my polls and wishes. I've had it pop up a bunch, and I wish I wouldn't have just infused them all into stuff. I wish I would have kept them around because I could probably have a pretty strong one by now if I would have kept them. But this thing works really well for him because it has this blunt concussion or blunt conclusion perk rather, and it says after using an elemental skill, normal or charged attacks deal an additional 75% attack damage in a small area. So if you drop that frost AoE on the ground and start swinging around in circles, every hit is going to deal a little additional AoE damage to everything around you. So it's going to make him dish out a solid amount of AoE damage, and you're also crowd controlling everything. It makes him pretty fun, kind of tanky, and definitely a solid support character. If you're looking towards endgame, his best in slot weapon is going to be the Wolf's Gravestone. It's a really cool weapon. I'm not quite sure where you get it yet. I'm getting this information from Genshin GG. It's a nice website that has all sorts of information about all the characters, but that weapon will help him fill that support role even more because the ability on there makes it so it's going to buff all of your teammates. It's going to give them additional attack damage, reduce their cooldowns, and just really slots him into that support role. Now, regarding Chongyun's artifacts, when you're leveling him, I mean, you really could use a myriad of different things. And I really want to state, when you're leveling and playing through the game, you don't need to worry about min-maxing your artifacts so much. And actually, you really shouldn't, because you don't want to waste a bunch of materials upgrading artifacts that actually aren't optimal for your characters, because it can cost you in the long run and make it really hard to progress when it comes to endgame. Right now, on him, I'm using the Instructor set bonus because it gives me a nice buff to Elemental Mastery. Elemental Mastery is a stat that makes it so when you pull off combos, when you freeze something or you overload or superconduct something, it just makes it so it deals extra damage. You're going to deal more damage for pulling off those combos. And with the team I'm using, I have 2 lightning characters and Barbara, so I'm always pulling off combos between lightning, ice, and water. So I wanted to just throw some elemental mastery on him to make him do a little extra damage when I need him to come in clutch. And it also will buff my party members' elemental mastery. It's a decent set to get your hands on. You can get it in sort of this early mid game and throw it on him. As far as his optimal set, his best in slot set is going to be the Gladiator's Finale. This one isn't too hard to start getting your hands on. I'm adventure rank 25 right now, and there's actually a few things I can go do to start getting my hands on these artifacts. But that one's really nice. It gives him just a flat attack bonus across the board, and it's going to just buff you out, and again, like his weapon, will slot you into that support role even better. So that's just going to be my overview of Chongyun. I hope you guys found the information helpful. If you did, drop a like below for me and consider hitting that subscribe button, because I've got a few more guides for all these different characters I have. I wish I could do them all. Obviously, it's luck of the draw. I'm going to cover the ones that I have, but hit that subscribe button for close to daily Genshin content. I appreciate you guys checking out the videos. This game has been a ton of fun, and I hope you find these helpful. So thanks again for stopping by. Take care.